everyone. Welcome to the Seeds of Success podcast, hosted by Dottie Stan Martin and myself, Orly Rivera. This show is your weekly dose of knowledge, insights, and actionable tips to transform centers into striking successes. Whether you are a seasoned industry professional or just stepping onto the lanes, we've got you covered. Dottie, I was just thinking of a show idea, and the way this came to my mind is outside right now, it's really windy, and, you know, our power for some reason here goes out so easily. It could be like 5 mile per hour winds and it feels like all the power lines fall or something. So the first time it started happening, we moved here, we were kind of like, oh no, where are the flashlights? Where's this? And me and my family ended up coming up with a little plan. Okay, this is what we're going to do if there's ever tornado warning, or, you know, let's have our stuff all in one section so we know where to find it. We're not scrambling around. So I thought, why not talk about that when that happens in your bowling center, whether your power goes out or there's some type of emergency, or maybe you're going to be having to close due to weather the next following days because you know a big storm's coming through. I think that's something important, that you should have a plan. And I would think that you would agree, right?
Yeah, for sure, Orly. And, you know, especially during the winter months when it's so unpredictable. And you're right. I mean, power can go out, the roads can be iced over, and you're going to have to close for business. I mean, there's just a number of things that can happen, you know, during the winter months that might cause you to not open up or to close early or whatever. And so it's really important to have a plan in place. You know, like you said, what if something happens and you have a house full of bowlers, and all of a sudden the power goes out and you think, okay, it's a flash, it'll go back on in 5 minutes, and it doesn't. So that, you know, could be a very awkward situation, not just for your guests, but also for your employees, right?
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking. You know, you might have employees that live, you know, 20 minutes away, and, you know, there's a storm coming, and some people might see it as, oh, let's go to the bowling center and bowl when there's a storm, you know, let's go hang out there and, you know, stay safe inside of there. But if your staff's not able to get to work, or, you know, they have a longer drive, they might not live close, I think it's something that you should be prepared for. That way you don't have a million people coming into your center and all your staff saying, hey, I can't make it in, you know?
Yeah. Well, and then the same thing goes for your customers. Now, you know, you see it all the time on TV and hear it on radio when, like school districts are closing because the roads are, you know, supposed to be icy the next morning. Mm-hmm. Then it's not uncommon for you to watch, you know, the evening news and see that tomorrow schools are opening at 11 a.m. because there, you know, ice is anticipated on the roads. So that's, you know, that's easy, right? The big school districts reach out to mainstream media, but for bowling centers, it's not quite that easy, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at, if you are going to be having to close down for weather conditions or whatever, and you know it in advance, then you should be doing things like leveraging your social media and making sure that you are posting the details right on your social media. Because the hope is that you have a number of your followers on social media that might be considering coming in, and you avoid, you know, a wasted trip.
Yeah.
And then your website, you know, if you have access to the back end and you maintain your website yourself, certainly put it on the homepage someplace, right?
Yeah. And maybe even your phone message, you know, if you have access to changing that, or like leaving some type of, you know, sometimes when someone's closed, it says, you know, it's after hours right now. If you need an emergency, you know, maybe leave it there. So people, the ones that are calling in, cause you just never know which way people are going to communicate to you, whether it's social media, phone. And some people might show up. I got to get your take on this, because I think once I remember you saying you didn't really like when people hang a paper sticker sign to their door, or are you okay with that? I'm trying to think.
Well, yes, you have a very good memory, because I am a fanatic about paper on the front door and tape and so on and so forth. So good memory on that. And I will say this, there are times if you don't have an LED, you know, reader board out that people can get a message that way, and you have to put something on the door, you know where this is going, Orly. Make sure, number one, it's not scribbled with a Sharpie. Make it nice on the computer. Make it look, you know, professional. And when you tape it, make sure it's straight, and make sure that your tape is even. I know I'm a fanatic right? I'm a perfectionist, but put your tape on it straight. Don't just have, the tape at all these different angles. And make sure that it's a clear message, professional. Tape is all, I know I'm like a drill sergeant when it comes to stuff like that. And more so when you pull that sign down off the door, don't yank it and have parts of the paper and the tape still stuck on your door. That's really where I get up on a soapbox.
Yeah. And make sure you take it down, because I've been to places where it's like the sign's like 2 weeks old and it's still sitting there. But yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Just because people will still, you could have the worst weather in the world and you're still going to have that person yanking at your door like, are you guys open? It's like, no, we're not. I don't know if you noticed all the ice on the road on your way here, but sometimes people will still show up wanting to come in and bowl.
Yeah, for sure. And so, and with that being said, most centers nowadays have a very quick way to get in touch with their employees. They have different apps that they use for scheduling and switching shifts and stuff like that. So, at the very least, if you don't have some sort of way, I would say make sure that you have all your employees' cell phones. And if you need to send out a really quick text, you can do that. Of course, emails work if you've got the time to do something like that. But I also want to make sure, that you're keeping in mind your league bowlers, because, that's their, if it's a league is scheduled that night and something happens and you decide to close early and you're going to cancel the league, definitely make sure that you're reaching out to those people and letting them know. And like you said earlier, people communicate in different ways. So don't just pick one way of communicating. Do multiple things to make sure that that message is getting out. So because the worst thing under the sun is for somebody, if it is due to bad weather, if they are, getting out and risking getting out and they're coming and then to find that it's closed, that is not a good situation. They're legitimately going to be upset. So definitely make sure that you're communicating in different ways. But you said something earlier, and our listeners know we go in a lot of different directions. Our little tidbits and our little seeds that we plant a whole packet of seeds. Sometimes we don't just plant one or put out one. But the other thing is to make sure that if something happens, like while you're open, and let's just say the power goes out, while you have a house full of people, make sure that you have a plan in place for that. Make sure that you, number one, you let your staff know what this plan is so that they don't panic, right? When it gets completely dark, they don't just like start to panic. So you want to do kind of like, a drill. Okay, if the power goes out, folks, here's what we're going to do. We're going to remain calm. We're going to make sure that we are keeping our customers calm. And, we're going to wait a few minutes. Whatever your plan is, make sure that you're communicating that to your staff. So if you want to have, your lane attendants, for example, if you want to have them go to your points of entry so that people don't enter or exit, you want to have a protocol in place for how are you going to handle payment if your system goes down, things along those lines. So I definitely encourage you to do that now when you are not in an emergency situation, and make sure that everybody is comfortable with that. So you're not so that there's not chaos that sets in.
Yeah, that's funny that you said that, because that is true. For some reason, I think everybody for the most part has been through some type of power outage in their life. But for some reason, when the power goes out, it's like everybody's like, oh no, like what's happening? Like it's just, it's almost, whether you're a kid in school and you're like, oh, you start going crazy, or I was at the grocery store not so long ago and the power went out when I was in there. Even I was like, it's like you freeze. You're like, what do I do? What's going on? Can I still pay? Like, do I still go up to the front? Do I take my food? Like, and they had emergency lights, but in certain corners of the store, it was like dark. And I was like, all right, this is kind of creepy. Where do I go? And even the staff, like I'll say that, I don't think they had a plan, because they were kind of all looking at each other like, okay, everybody just hold on a second and we're going to figure out how we could take payment still. So yeah, it is good to have a plan so you don't kind of seem like you don't know what you're doing.
Right. And that plan, is going to involve several things. So one is, if you're going to have, you mentioned emergency lighting, that plan also needs to have that you're going to routinely check your emergency lights. You don't want to wait until you lose power and suddenly see that your emergency lights, half of them aren't functioning, because that's not the time and place to discover that. The other thing is you want to make sure that you have additional light sources available and that your staff knows where to go to find those. So, you may have a centralized location that you put, a dozen flashlights so that that you have the staff prepared and they know what to do. And again, just make sure that they know how to keep your staff calm, especially children and elderly people. Sometimes you want to make sure that they're not trying to walk around in the dark and hurt themselves. Yeah. Anybody for that matter, you want to make sure that their safety is top of mind at all times during a situation like that. So, and the best way to do that is to think it through when there's not an emergency at hand and make sure that you have everybody on board with it.
Yeah, I have a question for you. So, I know you were in a center for many years. Would you recommend someone going down and kind of saying, I mean, I can't imagine everybody's going to start trying to run out with your bowling shoes, but would you recommend somebody going down and say, hey guys, you can just leave your shoes here and I'll grab them, take them up for you? Like, is that something, because people might, when everything's getting a little crazy, they might accidentally walk off with shoes or walk out wearing them, or...
Yeah, so that's a good point, Orly. Certainly, it's going to be dark, so they're going to have to find their shoes. So it's that's where the flashlights come in if they want to go on and change their shoes. To go down and just talk to them and let them know and let them and help them find their shoes. For that matter. But that's also a good reason to keep your staff members, have dedicated staff members that's their job, is to go man the door and make sure that, somebody doesn't try to come in if the lights are out, and let them know that we're sorry right now, we've got a power outage going on. And then also to monitor that somebody's not leaving with their shoes, or, you've got to have a plan in place of those people that do need to go on and leave. What are you going to do about the games that have already been started? How are you going to handle that? Again, communication and having a plan in place is absolutely crucial. And the winter months are definitely the times to be doing that, because weather creates some situations where you're going to need to know these things.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this is a great topic because, again, you don't want to be, in shock when the power goes out. You want to have a plan. So make sure you're getting a plan together. Let your staff know, because even if you're a manager and you're not in, and it's just some of your staff, you don't want them to be like, people are asking questions. What do we do? Can we just, leave our game like this? I think you need to make sure everyone has a plan, so you're not just standing there like, we don't know. Let us find out. And people are, some people are ready to go. Well, we need to go. We need to get home or off. If it's dangerous weather, like we need to get out of here. So yeah, definitely make sure you have a plan.
And that is a good place. I guess we should have been very specific when we said have a plan, because the manager may have a plan, but if the plan is not shared with the rest of the people, it doesn't do any good. So again, it boils down to having a plan and having communicated that plan and practice that plan, and making sure that when that situation comes up, that everybody's okay with it and they're going to be able to, to pull it off with no problem and stay calm and pleasant in the meantime. So anyway, yes, definitely plan and communication are two things that you need to have going into the unstable months of weather.
Yeah, I agree.
So, okay, listeners, you've got the seeds. Now it's time to grow. Join us next time for more Seeds of Success to help your dreams flourish.